I have a confession to make. I am addicted to perfection, and I suspect, deep down, you might be too. We live in an age of curation. We scroll through feeds of pristine, white-walled apartments with zero clutter. We look at photos of gardens where every blade of grass seems to have been cut with laser precision. We admire careers that look like straight lines to the top and relationships that seem to have no cracks. We have trained our eyes to recognize beauty only when it is synonymous with flawless. And that is exactly why, when I first looked at this patch of my garden, my immediate reaction was disgust. Look at it. Just look at the chaos. To an untrained eye, or perhaps to a critical eye like mine was, this isn't a garden, it's a disaster. It's a graveyard of good intentions. There are dead leaves rotting on the soil surface. There are vines tangling around each other in a suffocating embrace. There are weeds, plants I didn't invite, plants I didn't want, growing aggressively in the corners. It looks messy. It looks abandoned. It looks like a failure. My first instinct, the instinct that has been drilled into me by society, was to fix it. I wanted to grab my shears, my gloves, and my trash bag and wage war on this chaos. I wanted to pull out the weeds, cut back the overgrowth, sweep away the dead leaves, and force this space into submission. I wanted to make it clean. I wanted to make it perfect again. But for some reason, on this particular day, I didn't. I stood there, tools in hand, and I just stopped. I felt a sudden wave of exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but a spiritual one. I realized how tired I was of trying to control everything. I was tired of constantly fighting against the natural state of things, trying to polish every aspect of my life until it shined. So I put the tools down. I decided to do something radical. I decided to do absolutely nothing. I decided to let the mess exist. I decided to just sit and watch. And what I learned over the next few weeks of observation changed the way I see the world. As I sat there, day after day, forcing myself not to intervene, my vision began to shift. The lens through which I viewed beauty began to crack. I started to notice that what I labeled as chaos was actually a complex, desperate, and beautiful struggle for life. I saw how the vines weren't just strangling each other, they were holding each other up. I saw how the dead brown leaves on the ground weren't just trash, they were decomposing, breaking down to feed the soil, creating a rich, dark layer of nutrients that the new plants were feeding on. The death was literally fueling the life. I began to see the textures. When you strip away the need for perfection, you start to appreciate texture. The rough, mossy surface of a broken stone. The way a dried-out branch twists into a shape that no human artist could sculpt. The contrast between a jagged, insect-eaten leaf and a smooth new one. There is a Japanese philosophy called wabi-sabi. It is the acceptance of transience and imperfection. It is the appreciation of the beauty that is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It teaches us that nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect. And in that reality, there is a profound beauty that a sterile, perfect object can never possess. A plastic flower is perfect. It will never wilt. It will never turn brown. It will never be eaten by a bug. But it is also dead. It has no story. It has no soul. This garden, this messy, chaotic, overgrown patch of earth, it has a soul. It is alive specifically because it is fighting. The turning point for me came when I looked deep into the darkest, messiest corner of the terrarium. In a pile of what I previously would have called compost, I saw something. A wildflower. It wasn't a rose. It wasn't an orchid. It was a tiny, nameless weed with a flower no bigger than my fingernail. But it was brilliant. It was a shocking splash of violet in a sea of browns and grays. And here is the thing. If I had seen this flower in a perfect manicured vase, I probably wouldn't have looked twice. But because it was blooming here, amidst the decay, amidst the wreckage, it looked like a miracle. The contrast created the value. The darkness of the rotting leaves around it made that violet color sing.
It made me realize that by trying to sanitize our lives, by trying to remove all the ugly parts, the failures, the scars, the messy emotions, the bad days, we are actually robbing ourselves of the context that makes our victories beautiful. We are so afraid of our own weeds. We hide our flaws. We edit our furrows. We rehearse our conversations. We are terrified that if people see the messy garden inside of us, they will reject us. So we present a plastic version of ourselves, a perfect version. But that wildflower taught me that true beauty needs the mess. Resilience is not about never getting messy, it is about growing through the mess. I watched as the days went by and the garden began to balance itself without my help. The aggressive plants provided shade for the delicate ones. The moisture trapped by the messy ground cover kept the soil hydrated during hot days. There was an intelligence in the chaos that my controlling mind could never have engineered. I realized that my definition of a weed was just an opinion. Who am I to say that this plant belongs and that one doesn't? Nature doesn't make mistakes, it only makes adaptations. The plant I wanted to pull out was the only one strong enough to survive in that dry corner. It was doing a job I didn't understand. This journey of doing nothing, of letting the garden be wild, was a journey of forgiveness. I learned to forgive the garden for not being magazine perfect. And in doing so, I started to learn how to forgive myself. I looked at my own life. I have parts of me that are withered. I have dreams that dried up and fell off like those dead leaves. I have mistakes that tangle around me like those vines. I have scars that look rough and unpolished. For years, I have tried to hide those parts. I have tried to weed them out of my personality. But standing in front of this thriving, chaotic ecosystem, I realized that those parts are not trash. They are my soil. My failures are the compost that feed my wisdom. My scars are the texture of my history. My weeds, my quirks, my anxieties, my oddities are the things that make me resilient. If I were perfect, I would be as uninteresting as a plastic flower. So I put the shears away. I didn't clean the garden. I let the moss grow over the broken pottery shards, softening the sharp edges. I let the vines go where they wanted. And do you know what? It became the most beautiful thing I have ever created. Not because it was neat, but because it was real. It had a wild, ancient feeling to it. It looked like a slice of a forest floor that had been untouched for centuries. It felt timeless. It brought me a sense of peace that no manicured lawn ever could. I want to invite you to look at the messes in your own life differently today. Maybe your house is a bit cluttered because you were busy raising children or chasing a passion. That's not a mess. That's evidence of life. Maybe your career path looks like a tangled vine rather than a straight ladder. That's not failure. That's exploration. Maybe your heart has been broken and patched back together like a kintsugi bowl. That doesn't make you damaged. It makes you gold. There is a relentless pressure to fix things, to upgrade, to optimize, to polish. But I am asking you to pause. Put down the mental shears. Step back. Look for the wildflower growing in the debris. I promise you it is there. And remember, nothing in nature blooms all year. There are seasons for dying back. There are seasons for looking bare and ugly. That is part of the deal. You cannot have the spring bloom without the winter decay. This garden is imperfect. It is impermanent. It is incomplete. And that is exactly why it is perfect. And you, with all your flaws, your unfinished business, your rough edges, you are perfect too. Let it grow wild. Let it be real. Find the beauty in the things you cannot control.